Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Zizi and I'm joined today by Musa, or also known as Meteora. We are both the helpers for IGCSE Sociology and the IGCSE server, and we're so excited to host this paper one walkthrough with you all. We know that sociology can feel a lot to take in, especially since Musa and I were both sociology students. We definitely understand that, especially also memorizing all those research methods to mastering the to what extent or evaluate essays. But that's exactly why we're here today, everyone. We spent a lot of time looking at mark schemes and past papers, finding the perfect past paper for today's session. And today we're going to break it all down so it feels way less intimidating for you guys. So, whether you're struggling with Section 8 data or just need a refresher on key theories, we've got you covered. But before we get into it and crush the past paper together, I'll be giving the spotlight to Musa about what we're covering for today's session.
Okay, hi everyone. So the first segment we're going to cover is paper one structure. Then we're going to move on to the paper one discussion, and then we will leave the stage open for any questions you guys have. So I will just go straight into the past paper we'll be doing today. We will be doing May June to 2022 paper 12 with a little bit of adjustments to just to our current syllabus because as you know, since 2025 there has been a new paper pattern in place. Let me start by breaking down the structure of paper one. Section one is the compulsory question. You don't have a choice, you have to attempt it. In section A, you will be given a source. It will be either a graph, an explanation, or a study. Question A will be linked to this source. It has three parts. Part one is 2 marks. Part two is 4 marks. You have to explain 2 points. Part three is 6 marks. You have to explain 3 points. And then B part is a general 2 marker. And then C part will be explaining 2 points, where identifying the mark awards 1 point and explaining it awards another 1 point. This is 4 marks. Then on to part D, which is 10 marks, requiring four developed points and one conclusion. 2 points for, 2 points against. And then E part is 12 marks, requiring you to create a study on a given topic. Section 2 and 3 and all the other sections in paper 2 will also follow the same format. A part has two definitions with 2 marks each, and B part is 2 marker that requires mostly one word per point. C and D are both 6 markers requiring three explanations, 1 mark for the point and 1 mark for explanation. E part is 8 marks requiring three developed points. F is a 14 marker requiring six developed points and a conclusion. 3 points for, 3 points against, then a conclusion with your analysis.
Right, so I'll start with section one. I'll be doing the whole section one. So this is the first question from 1A with I, and I. Before I reveal the answer, I want to hear your guys' answers. So could you please take a look at the source and tell me the 2 years in which the highest number of people reported their health as very good? You can write it in the chat. Okay, so here I'm seeing the chat. I'm seeing many 2009 and 2010. Okay, let me hear your guys' reasoning for why you guys specifically think that it's 2009 and 2010. Okay, so that's right, Stephanie. It is 2005 and 2006. Meteora, can you please click for the answer to appear? Yeah, just one. No, 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 no. Just just one time. Um okay, it's fine. So, yes, it is 2005 and 2006 because we're talking about the highest number of people. You can see the sample size in 2005 and 2006 are the highest, even though their percentage for very good is little. But please do look at the sample size as these tricky questions do appear on past papers. And next, the second question, identify two primary research methods useful for studying people's health apart from questionnaires. So it can basically be any reasonable response. For this case, it can be interviews, any type of interviews, observations, experiments, case studies, surveys, longitudinal studies, triangulation, and so on and so forth. So this is a 2 mark. So 1 mark for each method correctly identified, which is up to a maximum of 2. So let's move on. The third one, I. So the question here is describe two problems with the data gathered on health. And okay, I know you guys can't see the mark scheme here, but there's much more to the mark scheme. Can anyone see any other problems with this other than the ones mentioned in the slide? Yes, one of the answers is that it gets smaller every year, the sample size, so it's kind of inaccurate and it's not really representative. It affects the representativeness of the sample, and thus any ability to generalize or the sample size is too small to represent the whole nation. So to elaborate, the first part of the mark scheme is that surveys like this one are self-reported. So this could be inaccurate as participants may be unaware of their health conditions or exaggerate their level of health. Now, it's always best when it comes to medical related things that a doctor deals with this or anyone who is medically certified. And also, something wrong about this source is that data has only been taken from those 16 and above. And this is not making it a really representative research because it doesn't represent the whole population as it misses on kids and some teenagers. And that data is also outdated as it's from 10 years ago, almost 15 years ago. So, or let's say around 20 years ago. And also because everyone is everyone has their own opinion, so of course the idea of very good, good, fair, bad, and very bad is subjective, so it may be unreliable as there are different interpretations. And also it's quantitative data, so we don't really get detailed information on why they think it's very good or fair or bad. Next slide please. Or just click again. Oh yeah, okay. Furthermore, the percentages in each year do not add up to 100. This is a small detail that no one really sees, but it is an answer. And it suggests that some people may have given more than one answer, which gives a confusing answer. And of course, as a few people mentioned in the chat, the sample sizes get smaller each year, so there may be an increasing issue with the representativeness of the sample, and thus any ability to generalize or the sample size is too small to represent the whole nation. And the data is also adapted from national statistics, and hence it may have been changed or modified and thus be inaccurate, as of course we learned in chapter 6, when it comes to authorities, people may not be as honest as they feel a sense of feeling scared. And there's also any other reasonable response. So any questions regarding 1A? No? Can we mention anything wrong with the method itself? Uh no, because it's about the data, not the method. You can talk about how it was collected, like the how it's self-reported. Oh, I just covered that before, that does not this does not cover qualitative data and it's quantitative. I just said that. Yes, part A is only about identifying and describing the data or trying to understand the data. For example, adapting to the new syllabus, it's always talking about whether this source is reliable or valid, or questioning its validity or reliability. That's what I see mostly for patterns in the past papers, as I grind a lot for sociology. So, no more questions? If not, I will move on to the 4 mark question. Okay, so the question is, describe 2 limitations of using telephone questionnaires in research. So, of course, I'll encourage you guys to think of an answer about the limitations of telephone questionnaires before I reveal the answer. So, does anyone have any idea the limitations of telephone questionnaires? All right, let's see your answers. And is there any more answers? Okay, wait, I see more people typing. Okay, so let's see. Low response rate. That is true. Some people may not answer the phone, and some people may lie since you can't see them, like not really valid. Yes, it's a major issue as many people see an unknown number and simply don't pick up, or they hang up as soon as they realize it's a survey. It's also called a non-response bias. Furthermore, interviews affect, even though it's correct, even though they can't see the interviewer, the respondent can still hear their tone of voice, accent, or gender, so their answer still may depend on those 3. So, for example, a respondent might change their answer to sound more respectable or to please the person on the phone. For example, someone might lie about how much they exercise because they don't want the interviewer to judge them. Interviewers bias through leading questions. Yes. It So you're saying it's when the interviewer nudges the person towards a specific answer. So it does ruin the objectivity of the research. And let's see. Less validity. Yes, that is correct. It's because, of course, validity is about getting to the truth. So telephone questionnaires are often seen as less valid than unstructured face-to-face interviews. And yeah, you can't see body language or facial expressions, and people are often in a rush on the phone. So they give short answers rather than thinking deeply. So, yes. So, Meteora, can you please click? Okay, so here are the answers. So, telephone questionnaires take up more of a researcher's time because the researcher has to spend time reading the questions out, and researcher time may add to the cost. Of course, if people are declining all the time, then they also will have to find other respondents. That's going to take a long time. And on the telephone, participants may give socially desirable answers or answers or the ones that the researcher wants to hear. So yes, like kind of like the in some countries or regions, not everyone may have access to a telephone, which may lower the representativeness of the sample, which is inhibiting generalizability. This is a really creative answer, by the way. It is also more difficult for the interviewer to read nonverbal cues or body language on the telephone, which may inhibit accuracy. I think someone mentioned less validity. Yes, it does correlate to that. It is also more difficult to establish rapport or trust over the phone, which may negatively affect respondents' answers. Like, for example, they won't open up or they have a hard time answering the question because they're scared on what the interviewer might do with their information. Furthermore, many people today may not answer a phone number they do not recognize, and this could impact negatively on the sample size. So let's get on to the next one. Of course, again, I'm going to encourage you guys to tell me 2 strengths and 2 limitations of stratified sampling in research. Or for this one, just say one. Like you can say either strengths or limitations. Just give one. Around 50% to pass. So, yeah, around 50% or so, like 60 ish, 64 maybe. Stratified sampling is when you divide a population into smaller subgroups, like strata, based on characteristics like age, income, or gender. So there is many people here saying that stratified sampling is more representative. Yes, that is correct. It is more representative. It also does reduce researcher bias most of the time. How All right, okay, let me restart about stratified sampling. So, stratified sampling strengths. They overcome the problem that random samples are not always representative in that the researcher is able to divide the sampling frame into relevant categories such as age, gender, etc. And they may allow for more generalizability of findings given the sample is likely to represent the target population in terms of its subdivisions. Furthermore, it allows correlations and comparisons to be made between subsets of the population. It is also possible to maintain a randomized approach, as random samples can be taken once the sampling frame is divided, thus reducing researcher bias in the sample selection. For the limitations, a sampling frame may not be available for certain research populations who are hard to reach, such as you can read it there. And so, another form of sampling, such as snowball sampling, may be needed. It can be hard to stratify as accurate, up to date population data may not be available, and it may be hard to identify people's age or social background effectively. It can be complex to do if several social characteristics are needed, for example, age, gender, ethnicity, social class, and therefore requires some skill. It is also more complex to do than simple random sampling, and hence takes up money. Someone mentioned that. And lastly, stratified samples are prone to becoming skewed in cases of participant dropout. For example, if many women dropped out of a study stratified by gender, this would make the sample uneven. So, any questions, anyone? Which point tree? Let me see. So because you have it separated subsets, right? So let's say for example you separated by gender and class. You can compare between them, and like correlation graphs, you can see like the correlation between class and gender. So for example, let's say I'm researching about someone give me an example of a random research topic. Gender inequality in schools, yes. So if it's by classes, maybe they'll say, "Oh, there's not really any correlation at all." But then you go to gender, then there's a very strong positive correlation between genders. So, for example, maybe if you're a guy, a teacher will be more lenient on you, but they will also label you more than girls. And girls, they're of course expected to be like diligent and disciplined. So, does that clear your confusion, Pan? Yes. Um. Uh. Not yet, Meteora. Um. Can you go back, please? Um. Any other questions? No. Okay. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next question. So, to what extent are ethical issues the most important factor when planning sociological research? So let me introduce the bands before I ask you guys for answers once again. So, band zero, no credit worthy response. So if you're off topic or you don't really make sense of your answers, then you don't get any marks. For band one is all 3 marks. It will show limited awareness of the question, so a tendency to description is likely. So at least you try to describe, and your description is somewhat correct. Responses may be short and undeveloped, and points stated without explanation. Social sociological terms and concepts are unlikely to be used, and you'll probably have 1 weak point. And in 2 until 3 marks, you may have more than 1 weak point. But two, you will show a response that's underdeveloped and lacking in range, and kind of unlikely to use sociological terms. Higher in the band, candidates may be beginning to use sociological terms and concepts with greater accuracy. However, maybe some aspects of the answer are underdeveloped or only partially developed. And for band 8 until 10 marks, it shows good sociological knowledge and understanding and will be well developed and explained, and the terms and concepts will be used accurately overall. Answers will be well focused on the question, and there will be a range of points presented. and the explanations will be clear throughout. So, the question is, to what extent are ethical issues the most important factor when planning sociological research? Can anyone give me two fors and two against, please? Let's see. If ethical issues are present, they can stain the researcher's reputation. Against research methods that may be deemed as unethical, such as covert observation, could provide greater validity. Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. Right, so I'm going to show a sample answer of my response, but wait, not yet. So, let's see. Possible answers could be ethical issues are more prominent in qualitative research as there's more face to face contact. So, in this type of interpretivist research, ethics are far more important in planning than with a purely quantitative positivist approach. It is also crucial to anticipate ethical issues to ensure funding from outside bodies such as universities or governments. Also, it is wrong to harm participants, either psychologically or physically. Information must be kept private and confidential. Deceiving people in the name of research is never justifiable on moral grounds and may result in danger for the researcher. And getting informed consent is a crucial right. Ethical guidelines are particularly important when dealing with vulnerable adults or young children, as they sus- may be more prone to the researcher effect and have special legal rights. And yeah, any other reasonable response. So let's see my first paragraph for the strengths. So I personally took the point that moral obligation is to protect participants from physical or psychological harm. So of course I used the peel method, point evidence, explanation, and link. So, professional bodies such as the British Sociological Association, that is the evidence, provide strict ethical guidelines that prioritize participant well being over the researcher goals or research goals. And also, the first sentence, that's my point. When planning, a researcher has to think about whether their questions might upset someone or put them in danger. For example, if you are interviewing a victim of bullying, you have to be very careful not to make them relive that trauma. That is my explanation, and my link back is if a study is going to cause harm, it shouldn't be allowed to happen at all, no matter how interesting the topic is. This shows that human safety is a moral must that has to come before anything else in the plan. For evidence, how specific do we have to be? You can give like an example as evidence, like for example, a case study like oh if like here I wrote about interviewing a victim of bullying, that can be evidence. And if you elaborate more like oh because of this if you are interviewing a victim of bullying you have to like this and just explain more. Like here I wrote be very careful not to make them relive that trauma, and then you can explain further more about how it's linked to ethical issues. Yes, of course, no problem. Any other questions? May June paper 12 with some adjustments on our end. Yes, no problem. Okay, let's get to the next paragraph. So, ethics are also vital because if people don't trust a researcher, they won't give honest or valid information. That's my point. My evidence. This involves getting informed consent, which means participants know exactly what the study is about before they agree to join. My explanation. If people know their identity will be kept secret, or in sociological terms, confidentiality, they're much more likely to tell the truth. If they feel like they're being lied to or judged, they might give fake answers or just quit the study. To link back, therefore, following ethical rules is actually the best way to make sure the final data is accurate and useful. So any questions on that? Okay, we get. Of course, you can get the slides later after this session. Okay, so no questions. Let's continue to the limitations. So before we get to the limitations, can anyone say a limitation of ethical issues being the most important factor? Like maybe say other factors that are way more important. Practical are way more important. Okay, can you elaborate on that part? Let's practice our peel here. Because without time and money, the study can't be research at all. Hmm. Let's see other answers. Ethical standards aren't globally accepted. Wait, you have a point because ethical standards actually are different depending on country. But there's also like a generalized one on society, of course, like bullying. Ethical can reduce validity needed in a sociological research, so practical is more needed. Legal considerations. Study cannot be carried out if it goes against laws. Okay. Okay, so really nice answers from you guys. Let's get to the limitations. So, yes, some of you did mention practical factors. So, while ethics are important, practical factors like funding and time are often more fundamental because they determine whether this research can exist at all. Researchers have to apply for funding and make sure they actually have a way to reach the people they want to study. Practical issues like can I afford to travel to these interviews? Or do I have enough time to finish this before the deadline? Are often the first things a researcher thinks about. If researchers can't get a grant or money or loan to pay for the project, the ethical side of the plan doesn't even matter because there is no project. This means that practical factors are the real foundation that allows a study to even exist. So before I continue, any questions? Will we be looking at the mark scheme for this? We at least for my part, I mentioned the mark scheme answers. For this one, I'll be giving you guys the mark scheme paper later on in the sociology chat. But yes, this is made to have all the points from the mark scheme. Thank you, Stephanie. So don't worry, all these answers are also mark scheme based. So far, do you guys find this paper hard? Because this is a low grade threshold paper, so I'm going to fail. Oh, no, okay, don't say that. We're all going to cook sociology. Don't worry. I always forget to review the research methods. Oh, topicals really work, in my opinion. At least it does for me. Okay, so let's move on to the next limitation. So, methodological concerns, such as avoiding the hot turns effect, sometimes require researchers to minimize certain ethical standards like informed consent to achieve accuracy. In covert observation, for example, a researcher acting as a classroom assistant to study pupil behavior, the researcher intentionally deceives the subjects. If a researcher prioritized full informed consent in this scenario, the participants would change their behavior, leading to invalid data. And in these cases, the theoretical goal of gathering objective, naturalistic data is viewed as more important than the ethical goal of transparency. This suggests that for many sociologists, the quality and representativeness of the data, such as sampling and methodology, are the truly most important factors. So, any questions? Okay, if not, let's go to the conclusion. So, of course, when you're building your conclusion, you do need to say your opinion, but don't write. Because of this, I believe just say, depending on the question, in this case, you would say ethical issues are very important. However, there is a more important factor, which is this. Or you can say, in my opinion, ethical issues is the most important factor. So on and so forth. Okay, so let's move on to the conclusion. So, in conclusion, ethical issues are very important because they protect people and keep the researcher out of trouble. However, they aren't always the most important factor. A researcher has to balance being a good person, ethics, with having enough money, practicality, and making sure their data is actually true, which is validity. Usually, ethics act as the baseline rules that you have to follow, but practical and scientific goals are what actually shape the study. Therefore, practical and scientific goals are, yeah, a more important factor, but in this case, I said that practical is the most important factor. So, therefore, practical is the most important factor, as practical factors are the real foundation that allows a study to even exist, and without a grant, ethical issues or anything about ethics won't even exist. Um, as far to my knowledge, yes, you do have to pick a side. Being neutral, I don't know if it's allowed, but candidate responses, I do see them picking a side, so it's safe to pick a side. Yes, pick a side, but don't be super biased. And just like what I did here, I said ethical issues are very important because, okay, I said their advantages. But what makes them not important is their disadvantages. And of course, when you're disagreeing with the question, you need to give an alternative, which in this case, practical is my alternative factor. Yeah, so you don't have to. Oh, you also summarize your points in what you wrote. Like here, I summarized my points. Of course, summarize it and pick your side. And yeah, as I said before, if you disagree, give an alternative. Don't worry, you can find all these important information in the pins. Also, don't try to introduce new points in the conclusion. I think it's okay to introduce new points, but when it comes to these cases, yeah, it's always safe to just stay to what you wrote. Straight up saying my conclusion. Good. Ooh, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's move on. It's been 1 hour already. So, everyone's favorite question, the 12 mark question. So, let's take a look at the mark scheme first. So I'm not sure if it's really seenable for you guys, but you guys need to have methods and evidence, reasons for choices, and application to context. So if you want to gain full marks, you need to have excellent knowledge of methods and evidence. You need a detailed and accurate description of the primary methods and sampling, and one piece of secondary evidence. And sociological terms and concepts are used appropriately and consistently throughout. For reasons of choices, they need to be accurate, and also appropriate references to concepts such as reliability, validity, generalizability, and representativeness. Furthermore, application to context, frequent reference to the specific area of investigation for all primary methods, sampling, and secondary evidence. That's at least 4 full marks. That's what they expect you. So let's see my sample. Meteora, for this, you can just scroll down. I'll tell you when to scroll down. So, explain the reason. Oh, okay, not that down. Okay, yeah, just the first paragraph. Just the first paragraph, please. Thank you. So, explain the research methods and evidence that you would choose to investigate why some young people join gangs. Give reasons for your choices. So, you need 2 primary methods with relevant sampling. So, 5 paragraphs in total with the secondary evidence as well. So, 2 paragraphs about your primary methods, 2 paragraphs about your sampling, and 1 paragraph about your secondary evidence. Personally, I like to talk about my primary method first, then go with my sampling. So, here. The first method I wrote here was to use an online questionnaire with closed questions, being specific on what I'm going to choose. I would use this to gather quantitative data on the number of young people who have been approached by gangs. You can see I correlate to the case or the investigation on the number of young people who have been approached by gangs. This method is useful because it is highly reliable. Again, according to the mark scheme, we need to talk about reliability and such. Since the questions are standardized, another researcher could repeat the study and check the results. The data allows me to identify clear patterns and trends across a large group of people. Now, please scroll down. Right, so the sampling I would use is stratified random sampling. I would use a sample size of 200 young people aged 13 to 18. Of course, it is important to tell the examiner later, if you're taking the exam, how much people are you actually going to use as your sample, or what's your sample size. And okay, continuing. To make sure my findings are representative of the whole city, I would use stratified random sampling. I would use a sampling frame like a school register to ensure I have a balanced mix of different ethnicities and genders. If my sample reflects the actual population, I can generalize my findings to all young people in that area. However, then again, the disadvantage is that I can't generalize this to everyone, only to young people. Do we use self referential pronouns in our answer? Well, because they're telling you to do a research, yes, it's okay. Personally, I do it. I've seen it candidate responses too. So, yes. Yeah, they are asking you to choose. Thank you, Steph. No, I'm not speaking. Okay, let's move on to the second primary method, which is unstructured interviews. So, of course, I'm trying to give the idea of triangulation here. So, I get both reliability and validity, and I get both quantitative and qualitative data. So, while questionnaires are reliable, they often lack validity because participants can't explain their feelings in detail. By using interviews, I can gather qualitative data that shows the actual reasons why kids or young people join gangs. This method allows for trust to be built, which encourages honesty. Using both methods together is called triangulation, which improves the overall quality of the research, balancing both validity and reliability. So, scrolling down, I have two sampling methods here. So, for the interviews, I would use a smaller sample of 10 people involved in a gang culture. Furthermore, I would use snowball sampling where one person introduces me to another. As a snowball sampling, of course, as you guys know, it's when you reach one person and ask them to reach to more people with a specific characteristic. Alright, okay, continue. While this isn't very representative because the sample is small and biased, it is the most practical way to reach a hidden group, of course, because gangs are not that open. So, of course, this would be a bit difficult to reach this type of group. So, the goal here isn't to represent everyone, but to get high validity data from those with deep personal experience. And of course, emphasis on getting qualitative data because we need to know the motive and exactly their reasoning why. So, my secondary source that I chose would be official statistics on youth crime. I would interpret these by comparing them to my interview findings. For example, if statistics show a high arrest rate, but my interviews show that kids join for protection rather than crime, it highlights a gap in the official data. Linking these helps me see if my primary data is consistent with national trends. So, that's from my end at least. Does anyone have any questions? All right, let's see. How many paragraphs do we need again? 5. Two two about the primary methods, 2 about your sampling, and 1 about your secondary evidence. Wait, man, I always made it one big text blob. Same, I put 3. Oh, wow. Oh, don't worry, Lily. With a lot of practice, you'll surely get the hang of it. This one, we can choose one between culture. Yes. So section 1 is mandatory, and for section 2 and 3, it's up to you. Is there a minimum word count? No! Don't worry. Zizi, can you host a business session too? Oh, you want me to? Sociology teacher, what's the main difference between reliability and validity? Oh, so. Hmm. Does anyone know the answer to that, or do you guys want me to answer? The difference between validity and reliability. Okay, so let's talk about reliability and validity in simple terms. So, validity is more like the truth. Does the data show a true picture of what's happening? So, for example, if you ask a teenager if they've ever broken a rule and they lie to look cool, your data has low validity because it's not true. So, just remember validity is about honesty. So, yes, it is about how applicable or applicable it is in real life. Now, reliability is more to consistency. If someone else did the exact same study, would they get the same results? So, a structured interview with fixed questions is highly reliable because any researcher can read those same questions and get similar types of answers. What I personally do to remember it is remember it like this. Of course, anytime. Any other questions? Okay, if there's no questions, I'll let the spotlight to Meteora to talk about section B, which is about culture and identity.
All right, so section B is culture, identity, and socialization. Uh, the starting paragraph is an introduction given to the questions. It was in the paper itself. Many sociologists investigate globalization and its impact on the world. This leads to a debate whether increased multiculturalism is a strength or weakness of modern industrial societies. Despite these changes, all societies still need agents of social control in socialization. So, what this is doing is basically giving you a preview of the questions. As you will now see, the questions are actually going to be related to this. Part A with the definition, you have to give a simple definition, but it has to be clear and it has to be developed. You should justify the 2 marks you have. What is meant by the term globalization? Would anyone like to attempt this? So, as always, I'm going to leave it to you to answer. Define the term globalization for 2 marks. Okay, I see your answer. Let the others answer. Becoming international. Okay. Okay, one person is still typing. I'm just going to wait for them to finish. Culture becoming more worldwide. Okay. Okay, so I believe that's okay. Meteor, may I answer in the chat? Yeah, try to, you can give an answer. Whoa, Stephanie. All right, so I'm going to start on your answers. And you know what? I actually forgot to include basically in the marks, and they give an example of a less developed answer and a more developed answer. So the answers that would earn 1 mark would be becoming international. That's the 1 mark answer. The idea that the world is becoming one culture by Ray, that's also 1 mark. The answer is you're supposed to make it clear, and you're supposed to develop it further. Let me just Globalization is a concept used by sociologists to describe the process by which the cultures around the world are increasingly aware of, interact with, and influence each other. So Zizi's an answer would have gotten full mark, and if Stephanie's answers were adapted to sociology, I believe it would have also gotten uh, full marks. Is everybody clear about this question? I'm going to take questions now in the chat. No, I mean yes. All right, looks like there's no questions. So I'm just going to move on to the next question. The next question is for 4 marks. Give 2 examples of formal social control. So this is again from chapter 2. And I'm just going to explain the format of this question so you have an understanding. You have to give 2 develop points, 1 mark for each agent that is correctly identified. If you simply write 2 agents, you will get 2 marks. But if you develop those agents and you actually explain what they are and what they do, you will get a full 4 marks. So, can anybody tell me 2 examples of agents of formal social control? Stephanie says laws, Symphony says police. Police, judicial court, legal systems, schools to hidden curriculum, government, the government uses laws for social control. All right. Okay, Ray is typing. Once Ray finishes, I'll reveal the answer. Okay, so I think that's all. And good job. All of your answers were correct, even Kiray's answer. But the one main thing Kiray did wrong is that schools. Zizi, what did you answer? You didn't not answer anything. What do you mean, even mine? So yes, Ray is right again. Schools are a agent of formal socialization, but not through the hidden curriculum. As I will reveal in the answer, let me just highlight this answer and show everyone. Okay, my first answer is government. 1 point, I have already got 1 point there for identifying the agent. Then now I'm going to explain it. They create the laws by which all people in society are bound, and they create the tariff of punishments which are applied for deviance from these laws. Day one, please note yourself. All right. Okay, workplace and employers. This is another one. It's a bit tricky. You might not think about it, but I personally would like to answer this. Written rules such as formal work contracts with codes of behavior to control people behavior, because once you sign your work contract, you are legally bound, and they often have clear sanctions in place for violation. Example, warnings, written warnings, and dismissal. So other acceptable answers are courts, because courts can sentence you to fines, imprisonment, other punishments. Prisons have the opportunity to deprive you from rights and etc. Schools have the hi, oh my God, holy stutter. They can fine you, give you punishments, and etc. And military, because military, in some cases, they have the permission to kill. All of these answers are in the mark scheme. Okay, now we're going to move on to the sixth marker. Explain how colonization influences gender identity for 6 marks. Again, let me tell you, it has the same format as this. 1 point identified, and then it's developed. But the difference is you did it 2 times here, you will do it 3 times here. So 3 separate points, and then you develop each point. Would anyone like to give answers for this? Explain how colonization influences gender identity. It's okay. I mean, we're going to do social inequality in the end, both of us together. Lauren, I think colonization is the streaming of kids. Yeah. Okay, Zizi gave a hint to everyone just to remind them of what it is. Handling them to societal norms. That is a really good answer. Economics and sociology are actually quite similar, and that's why people take them together in subject combos. So, yeah, that's one left for Stephanie. Analyzation is the channeling of children by parents to more socially acceptable activities by society based on gender, right? Okay, good answer. Lily's typing. Will chapter 3 be done this session? Yes, it will. Chapter 3 will be done by both of us. I will do some questions, Easy will do some questions. Boys are encouraged to take a more physical activities. Yes, great session. A great answer. Manliness, yeah. Or Meteora is my answer. Great too. Yeah, because you copy pasted it from the document. It is great. Just kidding. Yeah, it is great. Slow mode. Yeah, please. 5 seconds is too much. All right, Pan is typing. After Pan finishes typing, I will revealing the answers and telling you how many of you got it correct. Girls are playing with cooking sets as their parents tell them to do specialize in traditional family roles. Okay, so the good news is that I was not really expecting good answers for this section, but all of you guys, you did great. I mean, your answers putting girls and boys into different activities, that was a great answer. Board is the great answer. So what this question actually requires of you, you have to give examples in real life. This is where your examples will really come and they will help you. So let me reveal the answers. Wait, 1 second. Oh my God, bro. Okay, start. Playing with gender stereotype toys can channel boys and girls into traditional gender identities. For example, boys playing with guns encourages competitive masculinity, and girls playing with dolls can reinforce feminine values. As children internalize these behaviors and see them appropriate for their gender. And vocal affirmations also apply? Oh, that is a really good answer. That is 100% correct. I read this in the book as well, in fact, It is in the, I forgot the name of that sociologist, but she had four basic theories, kind of like verbal appellations, etc. Okay. Second is children are encouraged to play gender specific sports, which encourage traditional gender identities. For example, girls playing safer non contact sports such as badminton, whilst boys do contact sports such as rugby, which reinforces the idea that males should be strong and aggressive while females should be gentle. See my structure of the answer. I introduced the point, then I gave an example, and finally I just developed it. And then third answer, parents channel their children into traditional gender identities through the choice of books and videos. And here come media comes in. If you ever guys studied media, but although it's removed the syllabus, Disney films is which the Prince Saves the Day, which teaches children traditional gender roles where males are dominant and females are passive. So, any questions on this? This is actually a really good question. I liked. Would consumerism be valid answer to like buying according to gender? I'm not really sure about that answer because what are other possible answers? Yeah, I've got the marking scheme with me, so let me tell you. Describe. Let me just find it. Okay, possible answers include playing with gender stereotype toys. Parents channel children. Parents channel their children into traditional gender identities through books and videos. Children are encouraged to play specific sports, physical activities seen as appropriate. For example, girls will take ballet, boys will take karate. Girly activities in quotation marks, such as being encouraged how to learn how to apply makeup or cooking, basically teaching these activities according to their gender. And canalization is used in primary socialization and then any other reasonable response. So this is all in the mark scheme. It kind of surprised me as Marxism usually has a greater range, but yeah. Any questions? I don't know, like parents buying for children. Lily, your answer, if you had mentioned that parents would buy pink colored things or girly things, makeup for their girls, and like boys, they would buy toys. Yet basically, this comes in the toys point, or you could put it in any other point. I'm going to pick sociology after this session. Yeah, it's one of the easiest and the most interesting subjects. Boys would get guns and cars. Yeah, so no problem. All right, can I move on? I need to start locking in on socio. Socio is actually really easy if you understand everything. You just need to know how to structure your answer. For example, I saw a person, he came to me with help. Am I allowed to unmute for that? What do you want to say? What motivated to pick you pick sociology as a subject? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Zizi. Yeah, you can go.
Personally, I I actually had a hard time like first like understanding sociology at first, so don't worry about locking in on sociology. What I recommend is understanding like different sociological researches and like or perspectives. The perspectives are really really important. Section 1 is a piece of cake if you do it repetitively. For me, it's quite easy to remember um strengths and limitations. They often ask you on that, but do remember to focus on representativeness, validity, and reliability, as that's really important, and ethical issues too. Um, for other chapters like chapter 2 until 6, with a lot of practice, you'll also get a hang of it. try reading different types of notes. Like personally, I do that. I read my own notes, the textbook notes, and also sometimes Meteora's notes. So I do that, and if it doesn't help me, of course, AI is useful in ways. Let AI explain it simpler for you. It helps me a lot. AI has helped me a lot with sociology, breaking down concepts into more simpler ways. So, I do highly recommend that. So don't worry, we still have like 4 weeks until, at least for my paper, I have 1 month until my paper. So don't worry, you still have a lot of time, and practice makes perfect.
All right, I'm gonna continue. Yeah, I actually have a lot of time. I may not May, June. I'm October, November 26th, so I'm not really worried about my sociology at the moment. Okay, next question. Same format. Three develop points. You give your point, then you explain it using an example, or you give the reasoning behind the concept. So, does anyone want to try this? Describe three examples of cultural defense against globalization. This is a very interesting question, and it's probably the one most students forget. It's a very difficult one. Why are we discussing food? And oh, banning of internet by countries, example North Korea. A really good answer. That is actually one of the points in the mark scheme. In the mark scheme, it was more specifically, they gave the Great Chinese Firewall example. And I got a minute to think, yeah, take as much time as you want. Yeah, that's a good thing if your mic is crispy. My mic is not crispy, and I'm pretty sure you guys are getting some ASMR sounds. I have no idea what's going on in my house. My mic is great. I'm just using my laptop's mic. Is propaganda something? Government limit information on internet like China. Yes, same point. Great Chinese firewall. If you were to develop it, give an example, and I specifically mention this, you will get full marks. What about non-English medium schools? Not about family background. Your answer is actually very similar to one of the points, but it is not the exact same. I'll discuss your answer once I reveal my answers. No, your answer would have actually gotten 1 out of 2 mark, I think, because it's one limiting other cultures, norms, or traditions in countries like banning a hijab in France. If you had only mentioned that limiting other cultures, 1 mark, but because you gave an example, you showcase that you actually understand what the question is asking, so you would have gotten good marks. Propaganda against outsider cultures. Yep, that's a good point, really. Policies against immigrants. I don't think there's a limiting immigration. Yes, I think there was something like this, but we're talking about globalization here, so you can't really limit immigration here. Any other answers? Oh yeah, and for not using imported goods. I don't think so. Restrict amount of English-based music. That is yes, a good answer. That would come under restricting foreign media. For example, France, their media channels, they broadcast in only French. So if you were to your answer a little bit more like that, then you would have gotten good full marks. So I think that's all the answers. So I'm going to reveal it now. Okay, wait 1 second. Okay. First point is wearing and promoting traditional clothing can be a way of expressing your own cultural identity and resisting the homogenizing influence of global fashion trends. as it allows people to maintain visible symbols of their culture instead of global styles. So these answers are more simple and direct. Sociology is often just common sense. It depends on how you word it and how you explain your answer. So example of this would be, in Japan, most people they still wear their kimonos in cultural ceremonies, and they actually wear it a lot. There are other places in which people don't usually wear foreign culture clothing because they see it as something outsider. They see it as not part of themselves. They want to maintain their own identity as a community. Okay, number two. Promoting local foods and traditional cuisines can resist global fast food chains as it preserves the unique cultural practices and prevents a standardized global diet. Okay, I'm going. Yes, McDonald's. Yeah, some people avoid McDonald's and they go to their own local restaurants, which is actually a good point. So no need evidence for these questions yet. Um, if you explain it well enough, then there's usually no need for evidence. Dry dishes are fire. Yes, they really are. It's not evidence as such, rather something to back your point. Yes, Stephanie is an economics student. She understands. Okay, I'm going to go into the third point. Religious fundamentalists such as Taliban reject Western culture, which resists globalization by protecting the religious values from outside influence. Remember, your religion is part of your culture. Stephanie, are you secretly a social student? I'm a male. Yes, I know what I just called because of your username. You can give example, evidence, explanations, any one of the biggies, but not necessarily to include. That is a great point. Japan is absolutely right. So other answers they would accept it, organizing and participating in cultural festivals and national celebrations. Because most countries they celebrate their national celebrations with great pride. So that is another way to preserve your own identity. Any questions for this? Is it all clear? No. Stephanie, no from Pan. Now we're going to move on to the bit more scary questions, the 8 marker and the 14 marker. Okay, I'm just going to show the mark scheme for these questions. Band 0 is 0 marks, no credit worthy response. If you just write gibberish or nothing, should I be scared? You're an economic student. I think you're used to this. The PEEL ones, yes, PEEE. Band 1 is 1 to 3 marks. It will only show a limited awareness of the questions. Basically, you will have weak points. Your points will be underdeveloped. They will be short. Higher in the band, if you want to get 2 to 3 marks, you may have more than one weak point, but they'll be simple answers, engaging with sociological ideas without using sociological language. Meteora to the rescue. Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, and then your final band two, which is all of you should aim for this. You should have clear and accurate explanations showing good sociological knowledge and understanding. Your terms and concepts should be expected and explained. At the bottom of the band, your range of points will be a bit narrow or they might lack development, but higher in the band, your points will be more developed and they will cover far more points. So we are going on to the eighth marker. Let me just explain this format. Three well explained and well developed points. For example, in the sixth marker, you only needed explanation or evidence or example. You will need all three in here with examples and theories. Now, this is interesting part. If you mention sociological theories and sociologists, examiners really love those. So here are the formats: PEEEL, point, explanation, evidence, example, link. You link it back to your question. Point, evidence, example, link, that also works. Point, evidence, point, explanation. evidence analysis link. Now, this is an interesting part because you actually link it. This is an alternative to link, but it's really good. Now, anyone want to give me 3 points for this? Why are they important in socialization? Is it better for whatever you remember? Both can work. But if you remember a name but not the theory, just mention the name. It don't risk writing the wrong theory. I can see you're typing 3 points. Uh, yeah, go ahead. Okay, we've got two answers. Let me just read those. Kiray's answer. Schools are an important part of secondary socialization with the case of hidden curriculum. Students under hidden curriculum learn how to behave and act in a formal setting, which is crucial for their future in the workplace. That is really good answer. Thank you. That would have gotten full 3 marks. Oh my God, in front of like two, three mods. We have a Steam scam. We missed a Beast scam. Where's the chat mod? We have actually they are here. No. One sec. Banned. Bye bye. All right, we can continue. Pan's answer. Schools are important as they generally socialize. Teachers nudge boys and girls into different subjects or socializes them to different societal norms. Each teacher might tell girls to study needlework, fabrics. That's the important. Great answer as well. Symphony's answer. Schools can teach the students important social norms and values. The school rules and uniform, allowing students to learn how to be punctual and obedient. So, Symphony, your answer is great. You understand the concept, but I've identified one problem with it. Your answer lacks sociological terms, which means you have to mention the hidden curriculum because that is basically what you're describing here. But you haven't mentioned that it is the hidden curriculum. So just look out for that and remember to include these terms in your answer. So I've gotten 3 points in the chat, and all three are great points. I think they would have gotten, if we were to combine them, we would have gotten a band three answers, 6 to 8 marks for sure. But now let me reveal my answer and let me show you how I wrote it. Okay. First paragraph. Schools are an important agent of socialization. Now I'm going to be highlighting here how I have divided my answer. Agent of socialization is a sociological term because they perform a social control function, another sociological term, to systems of rewards and sanctions such as praise and punishment. This reinforces behavior learned in primary socialization and ensures that children conform to societal norms. See these uh, sociological terms I'm using throughout: reward, sanctions, primary socialization. This is what they require from you, and you should always include them in your answer. I'm going to now mention a theory. Functionalists provide argue that this creates a consensus leading to stable society and preventing anomie. All right, peer pressure. So, fellow students label each other. Hmm, I don't think so. That was in the mark scheme, but it wasn't any valid point you could say. Schools also transmit norms and values to the hidden curriculum. This is what Symphony's answer and Pan answer would have looked like. For example, students are taught punctuality, obedience, and a strong work ethic. To socialize them into the expectation of society, even though these lessons are not formally taught. This socialization ensures that they become conforming members of society, creating a value consensus that is crucial for the stability of society. Is my answer correct? Are you going to keep on asking that even though you haven't given any answer? Okay, I'm going to move on three. In addition, schools prepare young people for the workplace. I see one of you have given this answer. According to Bowles and Gintis's correspondence theory. See, now this is like sociological gold. This is literally the best thing you could do in these papers is to mention a study or a research or a theory. The structure of the school reflects the workplace with hierarchy and authority, teaching students discipline and respect, which are necessary for their future in employment, as workplaces have their own norms and rules that need to be followed. Let me see, this is probably the acceptable answers. Schools socialize children into gender identity to teachers' expectations, dre- books, dress codes, gender subject choices. Yes, one of you answered here as well. Correct. Who answered that? Actually, that was really good. Uh, yes, Brian answered that. So, what's multiculturalism? Oh my, you really. So, multiculturalism is a product of globalization that happens when cultures homogenize and basically they just start to hybrid culture. Exactly. The coexistence of diverse cultures. It's the opposite of a homogenization. Homogenization is when the cultures combine to make one culture, while the coexistence of diverse cultures. What's enemy? Oh, enemy is a concept by the functionalist. I forgot his name. Talcott Parsons, I think. Am I right? Yeah, enemy is basically the breakdown of order. When there's no more consensus of society, it causes civil unrest. Yeah, Emil Durkheim. Yes, it causes civil unrest and riots because people no longer have one common value to believe in. It basically causes unrest and it societal order collapses. That's enemy. The Zizi's definition for multiculturalism is really good. So yeah, that is multiculturalism. So 15 marks. Yeah, in the new syllabus there are 14 marks, but 1 mark. But this is from an old paper, so we thought 1 mark doesn't really make that big of a difference, so we just included it. It's 14, but it's almost the same. Yeah. So this is the very hard question. I want you to just give it a try. Okay, I forgot to explain the answer, how to answer this. There's three well explained, developed PEEL points, both for and against. 6 paragraphs. 3 paragraphs for, 3 paragraphs against, and in the end, you will have one conclusion. So, one of any of you can tell your guys. I just came back. What is this? This is the 15 marker. To what extent? To what extent is the type of question which you have to answer for both sides? 3 sides for, 3 sides against. Strength of modern industrial societies. You have to remember the functionalist and Marxist theories of modern industrial societies, how the family structure works, how
Is anyone else not hearing Meteora or being unable to see his screen? I can't see his screen or hear him. Oh, I think he's disconnecting. Oh, he left. Right. I'll share my screen. Which one were you guys covering on? He's gonna rejoin. Okay, it's fine. I'll just share screen. Which one? Which one was the hardest one? 15 marker. Okay. Where was he on? Which, like, which paragraph? This one? Just to start. Explain the question. Um. Oh yeah, he's definitely disconnected. Do you guys want to wait for him, or do you want me to just cover this? Just cover it. Okay. So first paragraph. Okay. So one strength of what did he? Oh, yeah. Did he join? Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Then I didn't even need to cover up. Okay.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah. Yeah. Before you were like, I didn't. You were so quiet, and I
Oh
couldn't
my
see your
God,
screen.
I was not quiet. The thing is, my power went out. So, like, just for 2 minutes, I was playing the dinosaur game when the internet goes on Google
Oh my
because
god.
it takes time to restart.
Do you want to share screen or it's fine
I
with
can share my screen because I have to, the highlight. Let me just share it. Is power cut off? Probably yes. My power did cut off.
Whoa, Dev, that's crazy.
That is absolutely insane. Okay, so while I was gone, did anybody try to answer this?
Um, he disconnected again. Okay, 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 guys. I'll cover it. Yeah, I can't find the tab. For multiculturalism encourages more tolerance and empathy as it reduces. Oh, wait, you got a point. Okay, let's continue while waiting for Meteora. So, one strength of multiculturalism is that it promotes tolerance and understanding between different cultural groups. So, yes, like what Kire said. Furthermore, exposure to different cultures encourages individuals to accept diversity and reduces prejudice. Okay. Okay, Meteor is back. Let me just cover this. Helping to create a more cohesive and harmonious society, and this can improve social integration and reduce conflict between groups. Like just what Kire said, yes, there is more empathy, and because there's a greater diversity, so then we're more introduced to different types of backgrounds, and yes, so more tolerance, more understanding, more empathy. So, okay, I'll give it back to Meteora.
All right, yeah. I'm sorry, my internet, you know, my power just went out for 1 second. It came back, but it just turned off the internet, so it takes time to reload. Okay, Zizi, where did you reach? What were you explaining right now?
I just explained the first paragraph.
First paragraph. Okay, so I assume people having class have given people in the chat have given answers. I'll read Lily's answer. Different cultures have different values. Would be like China's emphasis on hard work, Japan has emphasis on efficiency, Western has emphasis on creativity. They can each contribute to different roles. Now that is a really beautiful and really thought out answer. I mean, I really like that answer. And I believe, yes, it would get you marks. Four, multiculturalism encourages more tolerance and empathy as it reduces racial and cultural stigmas. Yes, that is a great point. That is a point that you should always have. And someone else, Symphony, smaller ethnic groups feel more connected to society. Yeah, ethnic culture is mixed with other culture and tradition. Hmm. Let me just, I think, yes, that is a really good point. Okay, then you guys are crashing out over me. Let me start explaining the answer. I will first, you know, it's not required, but just to get a clear picture in my mind, I like to define the answer as my introduction. Multiculturalism refers to the existence of a range of different culture groups within a society where cultural diversity is recognized and maintained. So, just I got my starting point of the essay. I'm going to reveal my strength now. Strength number one. The one strength of multiculturalism is that it promotes tolerance and understanding. See, someone said that in the chat. Great point. Between different cultural groups. Exposure to different cultures encourages individuals to accept diversity and reduce prejudice, helping to create a more cohesive and harmonious society. This can improve social integration and reduce conflict between groups. See this last point, that is basically my analysis and my link back, because this is the effect it has, which is basically what they are asking in the question. To what extent? Moreover, see, moreover, in addition, however, furthermore, these are golden words you should always use in your essays. These are really, these are called transition words, and they help to make your essay flow and separate your points so that your examiner has a clearer idea. Moreover, multiculturalism also enriches society culturally. The presence of different cultures brings diversity in food, music, and dress and traditions, making societies more vibrant and dynamic. This cultural exchange benefits both minority groups and majority groups as people gain new experiences and perspectives. Now, this is similar to an answer, Lily's answer. But if you were to more include this benefit for society, e- which is diversity leads to cultural exchange and making societies more vibrant, then your answer would have been full marks and it would have been a really good answer. In addition, multiculturalism can bring economic advantages. Migrants often contribute valuable skills, knowledge, and entrepreneurial ideas, which can lead to innovation and economic growth. This can strengthen the economy and increase opportunities within society. The stream. What do you mean by the stream? Nothing. Okay. So actually, what I want to do here is before I move on to the limitations, do you guys understand these three strengths? Is there any concept in them that you would like me to explain? I don't think anyone has a confusion in this, so I think I will move on. Now we are going on to our limitations. Remember, three limitations and three strengths. We've already mentioned our three strengths. What I've done is I first mentioned my three strengths and then mention my three limitations. But you should always remember you can do it any way you want. Other people, what they like to do is strength, limitation, strength, limitation. That's also a good way to structure your answer. So there's absolutely no problem in doing that. Okay, first limitation. Multiculturalism can also create challenges. One issue is the development of language barriers, which can limit individuals' ability to succeed in education and employment. This may result in social inequality and reduce social mobility, particularly from minority groups, because the language barrier, if your teacher or if your employer or the person who's going to conduct your interview he's going to be part of the majority group. If he speaks a different language from you, then it will not be easy for you to necessarily benefit from that because this language will create a barrier for you to attain better life chances. So, language barrier is one very important limitation. Furthermore, multicultural societies may experience a lack of integration. If cultural groups remain separate, this can lead to misunderstandings and tension, and in some cases, conflict. This weakens social cohesion and can create divisions within society. So you can always back this up with examples. For example, the reason India and Pakistan are separate today are because they tried to be a multiculturalistic society, but then they realized that this was not possible. They simply had uh, beliefs that were far different from each other, did not, uh, they were not compatible with each other in the terms of what they ate, what they drank, how they lived their lives. So you could have mentioned this subcontinent as one example, just to make your answer stronger. Last limitation, some sociologists also argue that multicultural is too idealistic. Idealistic, as in the fact that it's too optimistic. It's not always possible. It assumes that very different cultures can coexist harmoniously, when in reality, cultural groups may have conflicting norms and values, which can make integration difficult and lead to disagreements over social practices. Now, you may think that these two answers are similar. This is a practical issue here, and here we have a theoretical problem, which means that it's just simply too idealistic. The concept in itself assumes that different cultures will be able to coexist harmoniously when it is always not the case. Now, on to your conclusion. As Zizi said, the two main important things you do in your conclusion is you sum up all your points and then you take a side and you give your reasoning and analysis for that. Overall, multiculturalism is a strength to some extent, as it promotes tolerance, enriches culture, and contributes to economic development. See, these are my three strengths I have summarized. However, its success depends on effective ba- integration, as such as issues and language barriers, and cultural conflict can limit its benefits. So I have not taken a side here on purpose because what I want you guys to do is I've given you all the advantages, I've given you all the disadvantages. Now I want you guys to take a side. So you can just type in chat to whatever side you feel like you would pick and why would you pick that side? Would you go in favor of multiculturalism or against it? Curious typing. Zizi, you can also answer this as well. I want to know what you think about this. It's an open-ended question. I'm blanking right now. I can only think of why I'm against it in a business studies context. Sociology is a subject that basically takes a little bit from everything, so feel free to give that answer as well. Sociology equals to econ plus business studies. But you forgot the most important subject that comes with sociology, which is psychology. Sociology is the study of people in groups, whereas the only difference between this and psychology is that psychology focuses on the individual. Sociologist groups people and studies how they live in groups, whereas psychology focuses on each individual person. So someone is typing. If someone is typing, I'm going to wait for their answer. Multiculturalism promotes hybrid identities. Yes, good point. I don't know if I asked this before, but will you all do a P2 session in the future? Yeah, we should. That's the point to
If
think
we have the
about.
time.
We have the time. Yeah, Zizi has a May June exams as well. I
You
don't.
you know what? Actually, I wanted it to be like a bit earlier, but it didn't match with Meteora's time. So yeah, it really depends on our time zones too. So yeah.
I would say maybe because of cultural differences and language barriers, it could decrease efficiency and productivity in the workplace. That is actually a really good answer. Who did the crying emoji? Why? No, actually, this is a really good answer. You can apply business studies here as well because, again, what's the question we're answering? I'm just asking you that I've given you the strengths and the limitations. You can pick a side. I haven't picked a side in my conclusion. I want you guys to pick a side for me. Conclusion, yeah, we're doing that. While I'm waiting, my personal opinion is that history has proved us time and time again. Although I would not write history in this answer, I would just simply say that language barriers and this multiculturalism in itself is far too idealistic a concept to be applied in real life, and where it has been applied before, it was not really a society. It is a strength in education because it provides in the EDN. I think that education harmony, diversity, strength in the end, and tolerance between and within innovations. Yes, a good point. So, there are no right or wrong answers here. Every one of you have had really good points and great answers. So that is the end of section 2. We will be moving on to section 3, out of which I will be doing a few questions and then Zizi will be doing a few questions. So, yeah, I forgot to show this as well. I'm going to just read band 4 just to know what you should have. To our checkpoint, let's go, guys. Hopefully, it takes like 45 minutes more to wrap it up. Answers in this band will show excellent knowledge and understanding of the debate. There will be strong grasp of the arguments as well as accurate and frequent use of sociological terms and concepts. Answers will be well developed, clearly focused on the question, and discuss a wide range of points. Responses will be two-sided and have a range of points on each side. At the bottom of the band, the 13 marks, the answer may lack a specific conclusion. See, basically, they allot 2 to 3 marks for your conclusion. Higher in the band, there will be a clear attempt to offer an assessment to what extent part of the question through a focused question. That's no problem. You can just join on whatever device you feel like is better. A productive 2 hours. Yes, I had quite fun. Okay. Section 3, social inequality. Yeah, I've already shown this answer. There's no point. What is meant by the term vertical segregation? I'm just going to read out.
Sorry. Excuse me, Meteora. Can you share your screen, please? I'm lagging.
Uh, oh, you're sharing your screen right now. I think.
Thank you
Let me just
so
share.
much.
Let me share it. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the first question again is the definition question. Remember, in the new format, you will be asked to provide two definitions instead of one. Keep that in mind. What is meant by the term vertical segregation? I'm just going to straight ahead answer this. I don't want to spend too much time. The idea that some social groups, for example, men or ethnic majorities, are more likely to achieve higher positions in a social hierarchy, such as in a government or government institution. So I just want to clarify here. There are two concepts here in sociology: horizontal segregation and vertical segregation. Horizontal segregation is when men, I'm just going to use men and women as an example here, but this could actually be from any ethnic majority or disadvantaged group. But for the sake of my explanation, I will just use men and women. For example, in horizontal segregation, men and women will occupy the same level but will work in different roles. For example, men could occupy specific jobs such as construction, labor. Women can occupy specific jobs such as in teaching or nursing industry. This is horizontal segregation. Vertical segregation is actually when men and women work in the same workplace or the same job, but they occupy different levels of authority. So, men in this case, if we are talking about men as the advantaged group, men will work in, yes, vertical is hierarchy. That's so men will occupy higher positions in the group, while women will occupy lower positions. This is vertical segregation. If you would like to think of it in your mind, you can imagine a ladder for this. Vertical. And for horizontal, you can, I'm not really sure what to do for horizontal, but you can imagine a restaurant booths with different people sitting in them. Yeah, that's a bad one. So on to part B, the for marker. Again, you know the format: point, explain, then point again, then explain again. Describe 2 ways the welfare state helps individuals in modern industrial societies. Would anyone want to do this question? Okay, Ray, welfare state, good point. Yes. The welfare state is the money to the needy. Almost, yes, but not specifically the needy only. All people, like, yes, basically disadvantaged people. Provides benefits like unemployment benefits or child aid. Yes. Someone is typing, just going to let them finish, then I can reveal the answers. Okay, then the state school that equalizes everyone's chances due to meritocracy. That's a really good answer. That's one of the best answers, I think. Subsidized or free education and healthcare. Yes, but you've not developed your point. Is that why is it beneficial for society? You have given your point, but you lack the development. Like people given to money given to people that cannot work and earn for their living, allowing them to live comfortably. Yes, that is basically the definition of the welfare benefits that are provided. It's basically given to any disadvantaged persons. Lower cost for healthcare dependent on poverty level. I see, I get it. I will rep fine here, just kidding. I reveal the answers I wrote down. Free education is a feature of welfare states which enables those who would otherwise be unable to educate their children to send them to school, and this enhances life chances, creating a fairer society. Welfare states redistribute wealth via taxation, taking more money from richer members of society and using this to fund initiatives and benefits for poorer members, reducing poverty and helping more people escape the poverty trap. This also reduces financial disparity, which I'm pretty sure the economics or business studies students here know what that is, so they will understand that. So, any questions regarding to this answer? No. Okay. I'll assume that's no more questions, so I'll just hand it up off to Zizi to answer the next question.
All right. So, um, going to the 6 mark question, about explain how some ethnic minority groups are scapegoated in society. Before I discuss further, does anyone know what is scapegoated? Paint as a culprit. Okay, take the blame for something they didn't do. Blame for something they didn't do. Okay, okay, okay. Doing pretty good. Any other answers? Based on positions in the society? Not quite. You're forced to take the blame. Okay, so being scapegoated is being blamed for something you didn't do or being blamed for a much bigger problem that isn't your fault. So, can anyone give me a point on how ethnic minority groups are scapegoated in society? See, scapegoating is when you're being blamed for something, basically. Marxist blames the ethnic minority to take the jobs of the working class, so like they divide the working class among themselves to prevent revolution. Young people are usually blamed for or assumed to be in gangs. Hmm. The Marxist view is somewhat correct, but you're not getting there yet. Think about how the ruling class uses the media to persuade the working class that ethnic minorities are the cause of unemployment. All right, so let's move on to the answers. Really great answers, by the way, guys. So, if you scroll down a bit, yes. Marxist. So exactly what Ray said before. Can you scroll down, please, Meteora? Right. So Ray has gotten a point about the Marxists, but they need to be more specific. So, Marxists argue that the ruling class used the power of the media to persuade the working class that and ethnic minorities are the cause of unemployment, whereas this is due to the workings of the capitalist system. Now, for this type of question, you are awarded marks for also for mentioning the point and also developing the point, just to keep in mind. Furthermore, new right sociologists link some poorer ethnic minorities with an underclass mentality, blaming their culture and values for poverty instead of unjust social policies, which lead to social exclusion. And negative stereotypes lead to ethnic minorities being labeled as deviant. This causes the police to target them as a threat, even if they hadn't committed more crimes. Now, more possible answers is, for example, there may be racist stereotypes that affect some ethnic minorities as more liable to engage in deviant and criminal behavior, like, yeah, and they may be seen as a threat to society and become targeted. In multicultural societies, some ethnic groups are scapegoated and may suffer prejudice and discrimination because of how they're scapegoated, or are blamed for taking the jobs of the ethnic majority in times of recession. They also may be subject to scapegoating in employment, for example, immigrants. Some ethnic minorities may also be subjected to an ethnocentric curriculum, which effectively scapegoats them as a minority. Can anyone tell me what's an ethnocentric curriculum? It is what centered around one ethnicity? All right, that you guys have answers really close, but to be more specific, it's an educational framework that prioritizes the history, culture, and viewpoints of a dominant ethnic group while marginalizing or ignoring others, or in simple terms, an educational curriculum based on cultural values and perspectives of a particular ethnic or cultural group. So, of course, there are other reasonable responses that may be accepted. Yes, Meteora, that is the answer. So that's all from me from this question. Next, I'll let Meteora talk about the three economic consequences of migration.
All right, so again, this is the six markers, same format, point explain, point explain, point explain. Would anyone like to tell three economic consequences of migration? Even the economic students here can answer because I think they will know that. If you and me are up, oh, okay. Brain drain, yes, that is basically, if you write that as one of your points, that's guaranteed full marks. Not for the entire answer, but for that specific points. Valuable people of the country move to other countries, thus the country loses an important resource for the economy. Full mark. Economics business question, yeah. Describe three economic consequences of migration. Is there increase in production, unemployment issues? No, I'm not speaking. I was just waiting for the answers. Country may lose economic value because people may send money to their home country. Now remember, a consequence does not always have to be negative. A consequence could be possible. A consequence is basically an effect caused by that particular variable. Leave country short of workers. Tourism industry. Oh, I don't think so, really. Because people don't move there for tourism, they move there for jobs or issues in their home country. So their main focus is not usually on tourism necessarily in that country. Okay, Symphony's typing. Let her finish. Then increase opportunities for migrants. But that's not an economic consequence, right? That's maybe a consequence for the migrant, but not for the economy. Okay, yeah. So that would be if they would write consequence of migration or benefit of migration for the individual. Yes, you can answer that, but as we are discussing only the economic consequences. More migrants in a country, more people buying stuff, more economic. Yes, that is really good point. Obviously better economy in the home country. Let me reveal the answers I have written and let's read them. Countries may suffer a brain drain where highly skilled workers leave for better opportunities abroad. This creates a skills gap in key sectors such as healthcare and technology, which reduce the quality of services and slows economic development as there are fewer qualified workers available. Remember, we have to consider the economics of both countries from which they emigrate and the ones to which they migrate. Most immigrants are young adults. So, if large numbers leave, the population structure may become unbalanced. This can result in an aging population, placing greater pressure on the state and families to support elderly dependents, increasing economic stress. Ones, uh, people they are not able to work for themselves and are in most cases, I'm not saying all, they are not able to support themselves. They become a burden on the economy, which is a very bad consequence if you have an aging population. However, now I'm giving a benefit because consequence does not necessarily mean a negative side. Immigrants often need to send remittances back to their home country, which can be an important source of income. This can improve living standards and boost local economies, helping to offset some of the negative effects of immigration. So now is the 15 marker, and how this will work is Zizi will be doing the for part, and I will be doing the against part. So I'd like to hand it over to Zizi to get this.
All right. So before I start, do any of you want to answer to what extent is gender the most influential factor in social inequality? Yes, Steph. Glass ceiling. Right, glass ceiling. Women face significant barriers to empowerment. Okay, okay. What is glass ceiling? Glass ceiling is an invisible barrier that prevents women from reaching top level management jobs regardless of their skills or social class. or feminization of poverty, women's theory, and glass ceiling duel. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Really good answers, guys. Many institutions. Right, so let's get to the four answers. So, can you scroll down, please? Meteora? Meteora, can you scroll down, please? All right. So for my first reasoning, one of the main reasons gender is the most influential factor is vertical segregation. Now, can anyone tell me what this means? What does vertical segregation mean? Hello? Does anyone know what it is? Oh, the idea that some social groups are more likely to achieve. Okay. So, which is keeping women in lower power positions. Many sociologists point to the glass ceiling, which is an invisible barrier that prevents women from reaching top level management jobs, regardless of their skills or social class. Because of patriarchal views, the idea that men should be in charge, women are often passed over for promotions. This creates a massive gap in wealth and power between men and women that exists in almost every country and every job sector. This shows that being a woman is a major disadvantage that affects a person's life chances from the start of their career to the end. Oh, sorry. Yes? Oh, my question was what is vertical segregation? But it's okay, it has already been answered. So, is there any questions about this particular paragraph? Okay, if there are no questions, then we can move on to the second paragraph. Can you please scroll down, Meteora? So the second point I chose was gender inequality is also seen in the home, where women face a triple burden. Someone mentioned triple burden before, that men usually do not. Sociologist Sylvia Walby argued that women are expected to do paid work, childcare, and emotional work, which is taking care of the family's feelings. This burden limits a woman's freedom, while a man can focus entirely on his career or education. A woman is often held back by the expectation that she must do most of the housework and caregiving. This triple burden makes it much harder for women to be independent or successful compared to men. This proves that gender is a primary factor because it dictates how much free time and energy a person has to improve their social status. Is there any question about this? I said triple burden here because it's paid work, childcare, and emotional work. Okay, so if not, let's go to the last. 4 paragraph. So I also mentioned that society also channels men and women into completely different types of careers from a young age. This is known as horizontal segregation, where women are pushed into caring roles like nursing, teaching, or cleaning, while men are encouraged to go into technical or physical roles like engineering, construction, or IT. The problem is that women's work is almost always paid less and has lower social status than men's work. Because girls are socialized to be nurturing and boys to be competitive, women often end up in low paid sectors of the economy by default. This creates a massive gender pay gap that exists before a woman even starts her first day on the job. This shows that gender expectations shape a person's entire financial future, making it a primary cause of social inequality. These are not the only answers. There's also more answers such as sexism and prejudice against women, that some argue that patriarchy is a universal system of oppression that differs only in degree between cultures. Um, there are still educational gender inequalities in some countries, with women being discouraged from schooling, and this limits their freedom and ability to be independent. Domestic violence blights the lives of many women, and this cuts across different social classes and cultures. Lastly, Marxist feminists argue that women act as a reserve army of labor, so many women often work part time or on 0 hours contracts, which means they can be fired easily in times of economic recession. Of course, reasonable responses are allowed. What's a reserve army of labor? Um, how do I put it in simple terms? So, um, it's a term from Karl Marx. It's a pool of unemployed or under unemployed people who are ready to work but lack jobs. So they're ready, but they lack a job. Any more questions before I let Meteora continue? Alright, if there are no questions, I'll give the spotlight for Meteora to discuss about the against paragraphs.
All right. So now that I have, uh, let me actually give you guys a chance to give their against paragraphs. Would anyone like to answer? Let me just go back and reintroduce the question, just to refresh you. To what extent is gender the most influential factor in social inequality? So when you come to against here, you have to argue that that gender is not the most influential factor, and over here you will have to reintroduce other factors. So would anyone like to answer this? I see people are typing. Against possible answers. Ooh, let me read. Marxists argue that is because of wealth inequality in capitalism. The upper class try to pay their workers as less as possible, and wealth in is heralded. Really good answer. Right-wing theory on culture, poverty, and underclass would not gender. It's their own fault. It is due to their cultures and norms and values. Underclass, great. I love to see the sociological references and terms being used. Underclass is great. Racist stereotypes lead to inequality during minority ethnic groups. Howard Baker labeling theory. Now, this is the best answer. The Howard Baker or Baker, I think it's Baker. Howard Baker labeling theory. That is a really good answer. This chapter is exhausting for me. Yeah, I really don't like that much. I'm more stronger in chapter two. Age is also a factor of old and young people suffer because they have lack of statuses, and statuses are often linked to income. And old and young people, especially children, don't have work or are not able to work. Yes, you discussed age, which is another social factor, so that is a great answer. Against functionists argue that gender roles, males being breadwinners, females being caregivers, are not oppressive but serve stability and social order. Okay, I have to think about this. This is a really interesting point. Your point is 100% correct, but I might be wrong here, but I don't think it serves the question well. It doesn't address the question about it being the most influential factor in society. If anyone has another thought, then they can please share, or else I will reveal my answers. I think it's Becker with the E is yes, it was Howard Becker. Yes, I remember now. Oh, okay, okay. I think that's it, and I will reveal the answers. Okay, first answer. I hope you can see it. However, gender is not always the most influential factor in social inequality, as social class may be more significant. This is our point. Marxists argue that class is the most fundamental source of inequality, as capitalism creates unequal access to wealth and opportunities. Women's oppression is therefore part of the wider system of class inequality, meaning that class can have a greater impact on life chances than gender alone. Over here, we're discussing another social factor, class, and we're linking it with the Marxist class inequality theory, which would get full marks. Number two, structural barriers such as cycle poverty may be more influential than gender. Individuals born into poverty often have limited access to education and employment, which restricts their social mobility regardless of gender. For example, wealthy women may have far greater opportunities than a poor man, suggesting the class inequality can outweigh gender differences. So now we're discussing poverty, and I think I forgot to mention it, but over here, underclass can also be mentioned here. And finally, we're going to discuss another social, yeah, I forgot whatever that was. I'm blank. Ethnicity can also be a key factor in social inequality. Marxists argue that ethnic minorities are sometimes scapegoated during times of economic crisis, leading to discrimination in areas such as education and employment. See how we linked the scapegoating theory that is before. This limits their opportunities and shows that ethnicity can be just as important as gender in shaping life chances. So that is all from me. Do you guys have any questions on the concepts I just explained? Actually, I think we should do that thing again. After hearing both arguments for and against, we have to write our conclusion. Now, which one do you think is, do you think gender is the most influential factor in society or not? You can answer in the chat now. Repeat the question. So basically, I've given you all the advantages and I mean, limitations and strengths in argue favor for the argument. The argument is basically to what extent is gender the most influential factor in social inequality? This is the question. And now that we've given our arguments and for and against, we want to basically write a conclusion. All right, let me
Um, I feel like for Ray's conclusion, um, for Ray, maybe you could talk about like how gender is the most important factor, like what makes it an important factor, like summarize all the points, and then say your alternative, be specific which type of factor and exactly why. Saying because other factors may be more important than wealth is too vague. You should be more specific. For example, when it comes to class, like you can say, oh, class is a more influential factor, especially because the Marxism capitalist society, the idea is reinforced a lot. So that's one reason, and it's more effective or more reinforced than gender. And nowadays, you often see more gender equality in the workplaces or different areas. So, for your conclusion, because you disapprove the idea of gender, you need to give an alternative and have a valid reasoning. But if you do agree with gender, you can explain why you picked gender out of the other options and say why the other factors may not be as good as gender. For Stephanie's conclusion, your conclusion is good, but you also need to balance the advantages and disadvantages. Like you can say, for example, even though the disadvantages are this, gender is still an important fact. Is still an important or most influential factor because of then say the four reasons. It's pretty good though. It's a good start for a non-sociology student. Okay, so in conclusion, there are other factors such as capitalism, ageism, and racism. Therefore, I think that gender isn't because there are more laws. Okay, you're off to a good start. I feel like you could like to reach full marks for your conclusion, you could add like the disadvantages or the against paragraphs. That would be really good and you would get full marks on your conclusion and it is better. Personally, I would do it. Um I don't know if someone can help type this out, but I would highly appreciate it. So, um I would personally say in college inclusion, even though social class may be more significant, there are structural barriers such as cycle of poverty and ethnicity may also be a key factor. I believe that gender is the most influential factor in social inequality because because you often see times where women are in lower power positions, which is vertical segregation, and it relates back to the glass ceiling theory. Furthermore, it is also often seen at home where women face a triple burden, and also how society channels men and women into completely different types of careers from a young age. Therefore, you can often find gender being a high influence in many different places and often actually everywhere. So you can see how I talked about the disadvantages. However, I talked again how gender could be the most influential factor. So that's how an ideal conclusion should look like. It's okay, Steph. Thank you so much for your effort. So I believe this is the end of our paper one walkthrough, right? Meteoria?
Yep, I don't think there's anything left to
Okay, so
cover.
does anyone have any questions?
Excited for Pete to walk through. Let's see. So now the stage is open for any questions. If anyone wants to ask something, now is the time before we end our session.
Yes, and please feel free to unmute or you can type in the chat and Meteora or me will answer your question.
Okay, my question is
Do you always pick a side in the conclusion?
yes.
Personally, yeah. I think it's better too because in candidate responses, I never really see candidates being neutral, and it's always best to pick a side because you're asking to what extent is gender the most influential factor in social inequality in this question. So they want you to see whether it is or it is not. So, yes.
No question is actually silly. All questions are great. Feel free to ask.
How do I increase my
How do I
writing?
increase my writing speed? Uh, practice, 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 practice. Time yourself. Sit in exam conditions. Practice writing as fast as you can. And don't care about handwriting as long as it's legible. Is this still going? We're at the end almost.
Do we lose points in adding our planning on our answer paper, outlining the structure on the writing paper, then writing the actual paragraphs?
Mm,
Um,
I
I what
don't
I
think
personally do because later in the exam you'll be given a separate question paper and a separate writing paper. What I personally do, even though I haven't taken the exam, but in my tests or mocks, I always write my planning on the question paper. I think if I'm not wrong, you can annotate on the question paper. But you do not lose points. But I just would say it's best to be safe to write your planning points on the question paper. I personally do it in pencil. um, and then once you're done planning your points, you can put it in the writing area.
My God, Zizi has almost 300 points. I remember there was a time she had less than me. I need to lock in for my reps. Is it fine if we do section two only from each paper? Yeah, I mean, you if you have
Yeah, it's
confidence
okay.
in one chapter, just super specialize in that chapter, make sure you know it very well, and then go for it. Okay, so is that it? No more questions? Then Zizi, I think we should end the session because my delivery.
Guys, please ask more questions. We're really
Okay, Ray has a
open.
question.
Oh, okay. Ray has a question.
Okay, Ray, by the way, there is a resource on Mozza's website, Mojza, Mozza. They have a list of these theories and studies to reference, so you can try that as well.
Yeah, in the channel, don't worry, there are many resources from my notes to Meteora's notes. There's also many useful videos that can help you remember easily.
Oh my
Don't worry, just ask Meteora and or me or anyone in the sociology channel. Um, you can always ping sociology helpers if you'd like. We're really open to questions and we're ready to help you anytime. And please do not feel scared to ask questions. It's completely okay. Even the smallest things, they really matter. So if you want to ask a really niche question, of course it's okay. Okay, yes, what's
I
your
have a
question?
question. Oh, that's a really good question.
What's the
So,
difference between interviewer bias or affect? Interviewer bias is like, for example, if we're talking about the telephone questionnaire, um, from before, I think I mentioned interview bias. So it's when like stereotypes or unconscious preferences cloud an interviewer's judgment, which makes it like more subjective. Interviewers effect is when the one being interviewed is affected by the interviewer's like ethnicity, age, class, and so on. Basically, features of the interviewer affect the interviewee's answer. Does anyone have any more questions? Okay, so if not, before we finish off this session for today, just a few quick reminders for Sociology Syllabus 0495. The best way to get comfortable with the to what extent or evaluate questions is to keep writing them. And of course, if you missed any parts of today's session, Meteora and I will refer to resources used in today's session in the Sociology channel, or there might be a recording later. And of course, if you are struggling with studying, please feel free to just drop a message in the Sociology channel. We're all in this together. Feel free to ping sociology helpers or anyone else who's active in the group chat for help. And before I ended off, or we ended off, Meteora, do you have any closing remarks?
yeah, so thank you everyone for joining today. I really hope this session helped you all. And always remember in sociology, you have to use your sociological terms. Even though you know the concept, you should use the specific terms that you have studied and just sprinkle them in your answer so that your examiner knows what you are talking about.
Yes, I agree. And also, please do remember to search up maybe sociological researches and always remember to constantly review yourselves on the three perspectives: feminism, Marxism, and functionalism. So, of course, Good luck with your revision, everyone. Stay focused, take breaks, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'd like to apologize for any stuttering or any mistakes we've said during the session. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day, afternoon, or night. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye from my
Thank
side.
you.
Off to have dinner now. Bye.